G'day everyone and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap brought to you by CrowCast, of course. A nice little win there and breaking the Tassie hoodoo for the Crows this weekend. So without any further ado, let's get straight in and talk about it, shall we? Good evening and welcome to the Weekend Wrap this fine Sunday evening, the 26th of June. Welcome everyone who's joined us on Discord and also on YouTube. Hopefully we have a nice short sharp show tonight because there's not a huge amount to take out of that game. Unfortunately at the moment it's just me. Macca hasn't shown up, so hopefully Mac's alright and shows up shortly, but in the meantime, of course, we are live and interactive, so if you would like to hop on and have your say during the course of the evening, please raise your hand in the Discord chat if you're there, and I'll be happy to bring you on board. So look, I think we won't wait around. We'll just get straight into Macca's weekend result, shall we? Alrighty, so an interesting round of football this week. Not a lot. Many of the games. Melbourne 16-21, a powerful victory over the Lions by 64 points, 7-11-53. That to me was a real statement by Melbourne. They've been just going over the last few weeks and they've had a couple of losses. Lions have come up as their main contender, but the D's absolutely destroyed them after quarter time and really stamped their authority not only on the game but on the competition, I think, and it was a welcome return to form for the D's, and I'm sure they would have been happy with that result. We had the Bulldogs 19-11, 125, 42-point winners over the Hawks, 12-11, 83. The Hawks stuck around, but Bulldogs just too much class in the end, and that got them over the line fairly comfortably. The West Coast Eagles breaking their 9,348-day hoodoo, getting up over the hapless Bombers. The Eagles 16-11, 107, 10-point winners over Essendon, 14-13, 97. We had Carlton, a strong performance and a good win by them over an informed Fremantle. Carlton 12-9, 81, 31 points in the end over the Dockers, 7-8, 50. Dockers just having an off game, I think. They're still around the mark. A good game this one. The Cats 13-11, 89 in the end, 3-point winners over a fast finishing Richmond, 13-8. 86. Richmond probably just gave them too much of a head start and couldn't get over the line in the end. Just Shai Bolton, probably the player of the competition at the moment, just electric, but unfortunately not much else happening up forward for Richmond. Sydney 12-11, 83, 51 points over St Kilda, 4-8, 32, and as we mentioned last week, St Kilda just going into that dip of form that they seem to go through whenever they start contending, and that would have been a terribly disappointing result for that club, going down by 51 points over a team that they're fighting for a place in the 8 with, and at the moment not looking like it, St Kilda. Collingwood holding off a fast finishing GWS, 11-22, 88, 11 points in the end over the Giants, 12-5, 77. And the late game, another fast finishing failure by the Suns. The Port Power getting over the Suns by 2 points in the end, 13-15, 93 to the Suns, 13-13, 91. So Port keeping their hopes of jagging a final spot alive, and with St Kilda showing the form that they are at the moment, there might be one or two vacancies in that 8 over the coming weeks. If we have a look at the table, it's all of a sudden got very interesting in the top half of the table. We have Melbourne, rightly so, 44 points outright first position. And then we've got a procession on 40, Geelong, Brisbane and Fremantle in the top 4. Carlton just outside the top 4 on percentage. We've got the Swans and Magpies, who are travelling nicely at the moment on 36 points. And then in the 8 on 32 points, Western Bulldogs. Out of the 8 on 32 points, Richmond and St Kilda. So Collingwood making every post a winner at the moment, in the 8 at the moment, and Western Bulldogs rejoining the 8. We've got the Gold Coast Suns and Port on 28 points, showing how crucial that match was this afternoon, and also how evenly placed those two teams are at the moment. Adelaide on 20 points, GWS and Hawthorn on 16. GWS would be disappointed with their standing at the moment. There's a lot of class in that team, and not quite sure why they seem to have tailed off so much. Essendon disappointing on 12. West Coast getting off the bottom on 8, and North Melbourne. I reckon, and I'd love to know what people think in the chat, I reckon half of the SANFL would beat North Melbourne at the moment. They are absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. Unfortunately, I think they've probably got grounds for a priority pick. I think the AFL will decide that in the interest of the competition, they need to give North Melbourne a priority pick. And, of course, that always happens when we're down there fighting for high draft picks as well. So it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if North Melbourne got a priority pick, maybe end of first round or mid first round. And Fuddy in the chat saying they need a lobotomy, not more picks. I agree with you, mate. There's something going on there. They don't look like it at the moment, and they simply haven't got the talent. They don't have the talent. Fundamental errors. They try hard, but they just turn the ball over. And I haven't really looked too hard at North before today, but gee whiz, I didn't think we played all that great, but North played terribly. So, okay. So that was the tale of the tape for round 15. Still no Macca, unfortunately. So if anyone wants to hop on, feel free to do so. Always happy to have people on. And we've got a bit of space, obviously, with none of the other casters around right now. But in the interim, why don't we just get straight into the Adelaide game? And it was Adelaide 17-13, 115, 57-point winners in the end over North 8-10, 58. Look, it was good in the end. There was some obvious pleasing signs up forward with Tex, and particularly Darcy Fogarty up forward, dragging most of our goals. Some good efforts from our youngsters like Jake Saligo, who I thought was very good today, and our back was solid, but let's be honest, not a lot of opposition from North Melbourne. I expected it to be a tougher game. I thought North would probably come into this game seeing it as an opportunity to win one. I don't think we've won in Tasmania for about 7 or 8 years. So North would have seen it as a winnable game, and for them to serve up what they served up was pretty disappointing for them, but good for us. It was nice to see a little bit of a shake-up in terms of the lineup, and a few blokes back in that probably should have been in earlier, and whilst none of the ins really shone to a great degree, I think the team looked a lot better balanced overall than it has done over the previous few weeks. Now I've got Mick who wants to come on, so come on, Mick. You can save me from this lonely stage. How you going, mate?
Yeah, good. Can you hear me at night?
Yeah, gotcha, mate. How you going?
Yeah, good.
What you got for me?
Well, I just thought you sounded very lonely, so I thought I'd jump on until. So.
What do you think of the game, mate?
Well, I'm nearly finished watching it for the second time, and I thought Fogarty played really well,
Very well. Yep.
and I'm hoping they keep Jones in. Now, Hamill seems to be out. He'll be out for a couple of weeks with concussion because they'll take it pretty easy with him.
Yep.
I think our midfield worked better without 38 handballs to someone's ankles.
Look, I agree with you.
Yeah, everyone knows who I was talking about with that one, I think.
Yeah. I mean, Matty Crouch had 4,000 possessions in the twos, but I hope that his omission this week is a bit of a signal that maybe we've done our dash with Matt, because he got disposals in the A's. Nothing much changes with Crouchy's game, really. So whether he's playing in the ones or the twos, he's going to rack up positives. So you know what you're going to get, and I'm therefore hopeful that selection or the non-selection of Matt sort of signals a bit of a change.
I did comment on one of the Facebook groups that were complaining that Matt Crouch should still be in the team because he got 42 disposals. But as I commented that 42 Matt Crouch disposals would have been equal to about 100 metres gained, and probably about five injuries to other players that he handballed, gave hospital hand passes to.
Excuse me, you'll get banned from Facebook saying shit like that. They don't like that sort of talk in the Adelaide Crows Facebook groups.
I did get a lot of comments.
They love their lovely boys on Facebook. But look, I think we looked a little bit dynamic. Obviously, we had Lockie Murphy omitted, Matty Crouch omitted, Riley Thilthorpe out injured, and they brought in Chase on the bench, Harry Schomburg and Mitch Hinge. Well, I thought Mitch Hinge was unlucky to be dropped in the first place. I don't know what that was all about. And I thought we lined up a lot better. The only thing that I would say about the general team positioning and all the rest of it is I just thought it was a wasted opportunity to get Geordie Dawson up the ground. I mean, he just racked up getting the ball across half back, and it was all too easy for him. But I just felt like we could have taken the opportunity to. I mean, we had Day and Hinge down back who can both intercept mark, and I just would have liked to have seen Geordie Dawson play out the ground a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that in this particular case, I think they were, they know what Geordie can do. Maybe they were trying to see what some of the younger ones could do in those positions, because it was good to see there was a lot more responsibility on some of our less experienced players. I dare say, just because we're playing North, where most amateur leagues could probably, sides could probably beat them at the moment.
Oh yeah.
At least it gave them, a bit more responsibility. I thought, in my eyes, anyway.
Yeah. I mean, Geordie was named on the wing, but to my eye, he played most across half back. I mean, I haven't seen the centre bounce attendances yet, so I don't know exactly how many centre bounces Haitley and Shuey and those blokes sort of got in on. The Benny Keys and Rory Laird were obviously mainstays in the midfield. Shuey, I think, warmed to his task as the game wore on, and probably is better for the run. Probably the only... If I was going to throw any brickbats at all, Brodie Smith looks really out of sorts at the moment. Ned McHenry, I think... Neddy McHenry may be a little bit like Matty Crouch, Mick, in that we know what we're going to get from Ned. We're not going to get much more out of him.
I won't put him in the Matty Crouch's category, because he's a hell of a lot more. Well, he can run for a start.
Oh yeah. I meant in terms of ceiling.
He does a lot. Yeah, I do. I mean, I think I wouldn't mind seeing Newchurch come in for a run. I think it's over, way past due. So whether you drop Ned and move someone up there, because I think his knee was giving him issues today anyway. He come off the ground at least once with his knee.
Yeah.
And it looks like there's a fair bit of strapping on it, so maybe it wouldn't hurt him to rest for a week or two and give Newchurch a run.
I mean, here's the short-sightedness of that selection, though. We've got Melbourne next week, and you wouldn't want to bring in Newchurch against Melbourne. It would have been better to give Nettie the week off if he had a twinge in his knee, and give Tariq a run against the cellar dwellers. So, again, maybe an opportunity lost there, because I think they're probably more likely, if Ned McHenry doesn't come up or if they decide to drop him, we're probably looking at more of a Cook type, I think, rather than Newchurch.
Well, I still wouldn't. I don't think that's a downgrade.
Oh, definitely not.
Cook's quite good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
we do. You're right in one way. I think we do need to work out something else a bit different on our wings, because it seems to be our half forwards that spend 2/3 their time up there. And while they do have good delivery coming into the 50, it lessens the pressure we have in our 50s if they're not in there.
Yeah, yeah. A few people in the chat saying it doesn't matter. AFL is AFL, and Newchurch should just play. I think that's a little bit short-sighted in this case, because I don't think Tariq has been banging down the door, and I don't know whether you want to set a kid up to fail.
He played very well this week.
Yeah, I just don't know whether you want to set a kid up to fail. I don't know whether Melbourne is the game that you want to debut a kid like that. I mean, look, you take a chance, he could shine and could be the start of a glittering career, but I don't know.
Yeah, I do like Surfoz's comment about Murray in the ruck. I was going to make a comment on that. I thought he was, for a second ruck, he was very lively in there.
Yeah, but again, mate, probably horses for courses on that one. North didn't have much tall timber that was causing any problems apart from McKay. I don't know.
Yeah, I still think I wouldn't want to put him up against Luke Jackson, but no. I still think that he, for a break glass and emergency in the ruck, he might have got the actual tap out, but he was definitely got some clearances and put a lot of pressure on him there.
Oh, very, very. I mean, he was great when the ball hit the deck. He really did become that, that quote unquote extra midfielder. It was very good on the deck. So, I mean, look, it's an option. I also think that Nick Murray up forward is an option, and have been saying that for a while.
I agree with that. I think he'd be good up there, and you wouldn't want to stand in front of him because he'll go straight through you. It doesn't matter whether you're a teammate or opposition.
Yeah, that's right. The only query would be whether he'd be sharp enough in front of goal, but he'd certainly take a grab. But bit of versatility there. I mean, the other question, of course, is where does this selection leave a bloke like Fisher Mackesy in terms of not being able to force his way into the side when Riley Thilthorpe's out, Elliot Himmelberg's out of favour, Billy Frampton's not being picked up forward. Fisher's been playing there for a while.
I think people are getting a bit carried away with the whole Fisher Mackesy thing at the moment, because he lost most of last year through injury setbacks here and there. He's had 2 or 3 injury setbacks this year. He's only come back for, 3 or 4 games in the SANFL since his last lot of injury. And he did kick, I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think he kicked 3 goals this last game in the SANFL. I think that, I wouldn't get too carried away with him just yet. He hasn't even had a proper, even this pre-season, he was injured halfway through the pre-season.
Yeah.
He hasn't really had a real injury-free run at it. If there's not injuries, he's had bad distractions at home, which as a young man would have taken his mind off of it. Yep. I think he just needs to have a half-decent season where he's got a run to get his body right before you start putting, we start putting too much pressure on him, because we all say that talls take longer. Well, you look at Darcy Fogarty. This year's has been, I think, his best year, and he's been in the system probably 2 years longer than Mackesy.
Well, I'd go further and say that this last probably 3 or 4 week block has been Darcy's most consistent block of form. And, I mean, when you start seeing Darcy Fogarty putting the afterburners on, you think to yourself, clearly it was a matter of fitness. And Darren Burgess has obviously got him not only fit, but I know that he's done a lot of work with Fogarty in terms of his burst speed. And that was an area. It was identified that Fogarty was a bit of a loper, and they've been able to put some work into him to get his burst speed up. And you can see the kid growing in confidence as a result of just being able to get some separation out of congestion.
I think you can notice a change of attitude too, like just the way he just doesn't give it one effort. No, that's enough. He gives it the second and third effort and really gives it a crack. Yeah. But I was noticing there today, I can't remember which one of his goals it was he was lining up for, but I took notice of his legs, and they're nowhere near as tree trunkish as what they used to be, like around the thighs. He's definitely lost weight well, probably all over, but he's a hell of a lot more mobile than he used to be, that's for sure.
Yeah, he's still got packing a fair bit of junk in the trunk, but you're right. He's a lot leaner overall. But when you're running on top of the ground and you're feeling like you've got a little bit of pace in your legs, it certainly does give you a lift. So it's great. It's great to see. And real fillip for the club if Fogarty can come on, because another first round draft pick that was on the brink of the cliff sort of thing, but if he continues with this form, fantastic. And he and Tex were working very well. Fogarty after the game mentioned that Tex basically rules the Roos down forward and tells him where to go, but they did seem to have a good understanding going this week at least.
Yeah, I did get a laugh at that when they asked him, does he start bossing around? He goes, no, he tells me to piss off. So
that's right. I
did actually get a bit of a laugh out of the interview.
Yeah, that's right. Look, really, the forward line and probably for mine, Jake Saligo were the real stories out of the game. I thought Jake Saligo just took another little step. His poise and his ability to get to contests, his work rate is fantastic for a first-year kid. He's only 19 and he's running 15 Ks a game. And he gets a lot of contests. He doesn't panic with ball in hand. Looks really promising. I thought his was a really good game.
Yeah, I rate Sligo. I think he played, well, I don't know how many games was it, 4 or 5 games he's played, but he seems to be getting better game after game. I mean, Barry didn't have quite the game he had last week, but he was still in there. He's still, putting pressure, and I think he's a lot cleaner with his hands than a lot of their older midfielders.
Yeah.
I know how it goes, so I won't go into too much of the individuals at the moment. But I think I know we were only playing the cellar dwellers, but I thought I gave them a bit of kick of confidence too. The only downside I saw of all game was the injury that we had to
McAdam.
McAdam. That was he's been playing really well. But that was the only downer for the game for me.
Yeah, it was a shame. It just landing on another bloke's foot, and you get that. Thankfully, it was the outside of the ankle, so not as bad as doing one on the inside. Probably opens the door for a bloke like Cook or Gallant to come in, or maybe depending on how Riley Thilthorpe's going, they might decide to use that option. Because at the moment, it's probably difficult to see how Thilthorpe gets back into that combination without losing. I mean, they may bring in a tool for McHenry or someone like that, but I reckon it's a good opportunity to give Lockie Gallant another go. He didn't do a lot wrong, and to be going right in the twos probably needs another crack.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm so glad he come out and he signed up for another 2 years. So that was good
me
news.
too.
He's going to be hanging
Absolutely.
around. So give him a crack.
Best news of the year, Mick. I reckon that one.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a really good player. So the more you play them, the better it is. And we've seem to have. Now Fogarty seems to be running on top of the ground, as you said, and kicking goals. Well, we've got 2 forwards now that are going all right. So if we got a third one in there, it's still, there to learn the game a bit. Well, it won't really hurt us that much. It's not like we're going to be going for the top 8, is it?
No, not this year. Josh Rochelle, Mick, how'd you see his game?
Who was that, sorry?
Josh Rochelle.
I think he's cracking the shits a bit. You can see his body language looks like half the time he's going to trip over his bottom lip. But I think a lot of it's to do with he's always been, a number one kid in his side. And
yep.
I've always had, had it pretty good. Had it pretty, was always, right up there with the best players of any side he's been in, and all of a sudden he's come to the AFL, and I was like, holy shit, this is hard.
Well, not only is it hard, I think he'd like to be in amongst it. I don't think he likes it on the half-forward flank. I think he'd like to be in amongst it. I would have given him a run.
Cracking up a bit there, eh?
Homer. Let me see if I can fix that real quick.
I don't know whether I want to throw him in there as at the moment. I maybe give him one bounce here or there, but I wouldn't want to throw him in too much. We did recruit him as a forward mid, not a mid forward.
Yeah, that's true. But I think again, you take opportunities when they present themselves, Mick, and I just felt like today, given it was pretty much a cruise control game, we could have maybe got him a few more midfield minutes, to be honest.
Yeah.
You got to recognise we took him at number 4 or whatever we did, and we would have. I don't think we would have spent that first round draft pick on a lively forward. We obviously projected him to play midfield minutes, and I think it was an opportunity today to get him around the ball a bit.
Yeah.
And, there was lots of opportunities to rotate Shuey and Haitley and Berry, and even McHenry for that matter, through the midfield and give them some minutes. And I just felt like this is where our selection and our coaching is a little bit samey. There doesn't seem to be a lot of proactivity about the way we're coached and selected at the moment. We pick a side and we run with it, and we work hard, and everything that comes out of the club is all coalface stuff. It's all we work hard, contested ball and tackling and la la la. Doesn't seem to be a lot of flair. Doesn't seem to be a lot of Malcolm Blight about the situation.
Yeah, I made this comment I think a couple of weeks ago that I quite like our forward and our back coach, but I'm line coach, but I'm not overly impressed with our midfield coach. He seems to like to get his favourites. I don't know whether it's just a midfield coach or whether it's Nick's, but they seem to get their favourite 3 to 4, and they don't seem to do much more than that. I think Shuey was in the middle quite a bit, especially in the second half. I saw him in around the ball a fair bit.
Yeah,
but Yeah, they don't seem to rotate 6, 7, 8 players through there. It's, you're lucky to get 4 rotated.
Yeah, that's right. It's, 25 centre bounces. You would have thought there would have been an opportunity for a bit more variety through there, or even just pushing lads up at certain times during the course of play. And I think that might be contributing to Rochelle's perceived disinterest. I don't know whether it's disinterest. I do think he gets a little bit down in the mouth. And a couple of his efforts today were a little bit questionable in terms of his willingness to put his body over it. But he is only a kid.
Even some of his chases weren't exactly going 100%, I think, to try and put pressure on. I think there was a bit of loping involved in a couple of them. But I mean, it's his first season. He's a kid. He's not in a winning side. We got to win today, but we're not exactly flying. And he's probably got a bit of the shits on. I don't think he's any danger of leaving or anything. I think he's just he just got a bit disgruntled for a while. He's getting a lot more attention than what he's used to.
Yeah.
And a lot better of attention too. Like not just attention. It's they're wearing him like a glove.
Yeah, well, they recognise that he's got some weapons.
Yeah, and that's he should take that as a mark of respect that they do. That everyone does rate him, and that's why they wear him so hard. And he'll work his way out of it, and I do believe he will go have his sections in the midfield, but I don't think he'll be this year.
So here's a hypothetical for you, and I'm not condoning this or promoting this at all. But if we got an offer from an interstate club in Victoria for Josh Rochelle for a pick in the
here we go
in the first half a dozen, would you do that as part of a Jason Horne-Francis trade?
I knew you'd bring up Jason Horne-Francis. I'm pretty sure you've got a poster of him on your bedroom ceiling.
Mate, I've been watching him for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd rather try and work out other ways of doing it and keep both because you want to make your team better all over, not just. I think Jason Horne-Francis has got a lot of tricks. I'm not saying he hasn't. I also think that Rochelle's got a lot of tricks. And in my mind, I'd rather have both of them than one of them.
100%. 100% you'd rather have both of them.
If there's a different way of doing it, I think we should explore all avenues of keeping Rochelle and try and get Francis as well. Because I think at the moment I'd rather the bird in the hand is better than one in the bush, and I mean I don't know who else we can trade or who's got currency and trade or anything, but looking at North's list and the way they played today, you could almost pull one of those. I think it was Giants. I think it was Giants and Essendon a few years ago, where they did picks for about 5 players. Well, I think
Carlton,
we could just about do that stuff. Carlton, was it? Yeah, it was Carlton. Yes, well, it could be something like that because North need everything. They don't need 1 or 2 players. They need 5 or 6 just to get slightly competitive. One more first rounder's not going to help them. They need help.
Yeah. Look, I think it's finally shaken out with North because when you put in 2 expansion teams like GWS and Gold Coast and you give them so much high-end talent, there was always going to be 1 or 2 clubs that got burnt in that process because there's just not enough talent to go around. And that team is North.
There's a bit of that theme, but there's also a bit of being complete muppets. And, getting rid of players that they could have kept for 1 or 2 years to help teach them to. They cut to the bone, and they cut too far for the bone with their older players. Like getting rid of 14 or whatever it was in one hit. They cut it too deep. And,
definitely.
That's what you get.
Yeah, definitely. I think they're a little bit seduced by their high finish back a few years ago, and thought they had enough talent coming through to keep them going. They do, there's 3 or 4 there that I wouldn't mind having in my team, but you just don't see them coming back. And with the problem for North is that they've got a small supporter base. They don't have a lot of finances, and you'd have to say they're 5 years away. If they do everything right from here on, they're still probably 5 years away from being any sort of contender just to make the 8, I would have thought.
No, that's probably generous. Just the age group that they've got there. I know we're the youngest, but they wouldn't be far off of it. And the only reason they're not the youngest is they've got a few dinosaurs in their side.
Gold sand tips.
Yeah, he picks their average up by 2 years overall. He's almost old enough to be a rookie for Geelong. But they're way behind. I mean, they've got to get a lot of games into a lot of kids, and they're going to be shit for the next 3 or 4 years before they even start climbing up there. And that's if they do pick right.
That's right. They've got to do everything right.
And they need more than one first rounder. They need more than one, really good player coming in every year, and that's where they should have taken the trade that we offered them last year.
100%.
Yeah, they were foolish. They were foolish to think they could bring one great white hope in, and rather than 3 players, and maybe we can offer them 3 players. And,
it was absolute.
They mightn't be, they mightn't be the top of the line. At least they'll have. We've got a few of our mid-range players we've got sitting there that I wouldn't cry if they left.
Mate,
they would definitely lift up their training standards. They'd probably be leaders, and actually make them better over the field than another young kid.
Mate, it was an
experience.
It was an absolutely ridiculous call by them not to take our or Richmond's offer. I think they got they were deer in the headlights because they knew that it was the club's first pick, and they didn't want the PR hit in terms of having to explain away, giving away such a gilt-edged talent. But you're 100% right. Given the state of their list and what they needed to be able to get 2 or 3 picks inside the first round, or 2 and a player, or whatever the hell it was, that's exactly what they needed. And this is why I'm opposed to them getting a priority pick next year, this year, because they had that opportunity to get full value. They never had a more valuable first round pick than the one they had last year. And now because they didn't take that, because they didn't do the right thing, the smart thing, they're going to have their hand out to the AFL saying, "Oh, we want an extra pick," and I don't think it's right.
Not only that thing, not only this, that last year's not taking the trade. It's how they cut their players and how they have handled this entire rebuild. It just adds up to you don't deserve a pick. You're a pack of muppets, virtually.
Yeah.
It's not just one thing that say you should have traded that pick. It's the last 3 years.
Oh, 100%.
Just added up to just add up to one cluster after another.
Well, I think they're a club that is heavily invested in bygone successes and bygone era of great players, and I don't think they've, and Jimmy Brayshaw, you love him or hate him, he was very passionate about that club, and They resisted going up to the Gold Coast, and they're not interested in going to Tasmania, and Tasmania really aren't interested in them either. But as a result, I just think the shakeout of the way the competition's been handled over the last, dozen years or so, with the dilution of talent, the inclusion of extra teams, and the leg up that those teams got for a long period of time, there was always going to be one team, Mick, and that team is North. And between North and St Kilda, they're probably the two teams in the competition that you really don't want having extended periods at the bottom of the ladder, because they just don't have the supporter base. And I really honestly think that there's going to be a bit of a it's going to come to a head with North Melbourne, because we're going to be having the same conversation in 3 years' time about North, and their crowds are going to be down, their finances are going to be down. Any kid that goes there is going to want to leave. You've got it.
It's going to be like Brisbane all over again.
100%. So, and the only thing that got Brisbane off the deck was merging with bloody Fitzroy.
Yeah.
So I think there's a storm brewing with North Melbourne, and I don't think it's going to be pretty.
I'm in a unique situation, because I was sitting at a family event last night, just sitting around a bonfire, and I actually have, my brother-in-law is actually a North Melbourne supporter. I actually found one. Yeah. And nephew's a St Kilda supporter. And
wow.
You think we have something to whinge about. You see them, like the St Kilda supporters. But how long have St Kilda's been there? They've won one premiership in the entire time.
Those family gigs must be fun times, mate.
Oh, and my other brother-in-law was a Geelong supporter, and you should have seen some of the text messages I was sending him yesterday when they were looking like they were going to lose. And I said, you need to quickly run out there and take some fish oil tablets to get the old boys' joints moving, because they're going to get run over. But it is a very interesting family event.
Yeah, well, I don't know how North are going to get themselves out of this one. I really don't. And, to be honest, we all know there's at least two too many teams in Victoria, in my opinion. North and St Kilda are the two teams that shouldn't be there. And I just wonder whether the next CEO will have the agates to really sit down and address this problem, because it's not going away. It's not going away anytime soon.
I think one in Tassie and one in Darwin sounds good to me, but I'd hate to play the Darwin side.
I don't know how logistically you get the Darwin thing going unless you base them in Alice.
No, I think it'd have to be in Darwin itself. But yeah, I don't know.
You
have to train with a cake of soap before you went up there, I suppose.
Anyway, let's look at some head-to-head stats, shall we, Mick? Not that it really means a hell of a lot. 328 to 318 disposals. Much better kick-to-handball ratio for us this week. 193 kicks, 135 handballs. Inside 50s, we had 16 more than them. Not a huge amount by us, but at least we're getting the ball in there, not like the previous couple of weeks. Disposal efficiency was good. North was horrific. North running at 63.5 disposal efficiency for the match. And you're just not going to win games of footy doing that. Contested posies was fairly even. Uncontested, we got a little bit more on the outside than them. We turned it over slightly less. Free kicks relatively even. Hit outs. One thing that I wanted to say with regards to Riley Thilthorpe, is there an opportunity for us to maybe, instead of Kieran Strawn coming in for Riley O'Brien, to run Riley Thilthorpe off the bench in a three-way sort of situation between forward ruck and the bench with Riley O'Brien?
I'd love to see Thilthorpe in the ruck and play him there for an extended amount of games. I think he's got the agility. I don't think he is forward. I don't think he's, he's not a high-flying forward. He's not that skilled. He does take marks, but that's not really his go. I'd love to see him in the ring.
I think he's a ruckman. A ruck forward, probably, rather than a forward ruck. GP in the chat, that's right. Will Phillips has had glandular fever, I believe, which is why we're not seeing him at North. He's not a power forward, I don't think. He's not going to be a power forward like, say, Logan McDonald is projecting to be a power forward. He's got fantastic skills. My only worry about him in the ruck is he honestly seems to be like, what is he rated at, 202 or something centimetres? He just doesn't seem that tall on the field to me. Doesn't seem to play tall. Do you get that impression at all, Mick?
I don't know whether it's just an optical illusion because he's mobile. I think he's actually moves like a normal human being, not like a stick figure like our normal ruckman.
Yeah. But I mean, you look at Max King, for example, and like you can tell he looks tall. He's got big wingspan,
but he's
all that stuff.
Yeah, but he's gangly. That's why. I mean, he looks like he's made out of straws. He's I don't know. I think maybe it's the proportion of Phil Thorpe's body that makes you think that he's not as tall as he is. But
we didn't seem to play 202.
Tall. I don't think they're kidding. But I just love to see him have a crack in the ruck. I don't want to see Riley O'Brien drop, for God's sake, because he's in my Supercoach side. But I do want to see him Phil Thorpe, chop out a bit.
Yeah, no, I agree. More ruck minutes. You don't want to kill the kid, but I mean, he rucked for his whole senior season pretty much at Westies on and off. So it's not as if the kid doesn't know how to ruck. I was
following him all year because I knew we were probably going to take him. So that year I was watching whatever games I can because I don't live in Adelaide. I actually live in Broken Hill. So I only watch the games I can, and I was following him as much as I could.
Yeah. Anyway, head-outs, Riley O'Brien 41, North Melbourne 54. Clearances, we're 4 up on clearances, which was all centre bounce clearances. We're even around stoppage. Marks, North Melbourne 80 to 65, which is interesting considering our low handball count and the fact that we had more of the ball on the outside. That stat doesn't kind of compute to me, but anyway. 13 marks inside 50 each, 16 contested to 14 marks. North slight edge over Adelaide there. Tackles 58 to 85 is a huge disparity, considering we were on top for most of the game. The fact that we were able to out-tackle them by 27 and 20 tackles inside 50. Now, I didn't necessarily notice our forward 50 defensive work ramping up. It felt to me more like North Melbourne were just shit down back, but maybe I was mistaken.
I did hear the commentators say, I think it was towards, I think it might have been the beginning of the second quarter, that our pressure index, or whatever they call it, we were over 220.
Yeah, okay.
And they were saying that we were cracking in pretty well. So maybe we obviously were putting a lot of pressure on, but it might have been a bit of the of option B as well, where North were just shit.
Yeah. I mean, they weren't great. Let's be honest. Oh dear. Well, I mean, there's not a lot to take from those stats. Stats-wise, it looks relatively even. We obviously just use the ball a lot better.
I think I'll take one thing on them. I think the coaches gave Lairdy a bit of a talking to about all the handballs because he seemed to kick a lot more.
Well, that's right. Although he's still 13 and 21 for his 34 touches, but That's better than 2 and 50, which it's been trending towards. But let's have a look at some individual stats while we're at it. And we won't go through all of this, but as we mentioned, Laddie, 34 touches, 13-21, 11 tackles, which is excellent, 11 clearances also, which is good, 316 metres gained. He had 4 inside 50s, 7 intercepts, 8 score involvements, and that's the one I always like to see up with our midfielders. The fact that he was able to get involved in some scoring chains is good. 22 contested possessions for team high was excellent. And to be honest with you, overall, probably our best player, I would have thought.
Yeah, no argument there, I don't think.
Benny Keys had 30 as well, 17-13, just not impacting the game as much at the moment. Ben had 7 clearances, 627 metres gained though. Makes a bit of a liar out of me, although effective metres gained would be a great stat to have, I reckon. 5 inside 50s, 4 score involvements, only 60% disposal efficiency, which is the query, and 14 contested possessions. To be honest with you, I didn't notice Ben's work much.
I'm starting to wonder whether Ben wears contact lenses and whether he's got a Crows player actually stuck to one of his contact lenses, because he seems to hand pass where there isn't anybody, or kick to somewhere where there's nobody all the time. So I don't actually know what he's kicking to.
Look, for a bloke with his speed and his aggression and his ability to gut run, there had to be a reason why not only could he not break into the Brisbane team, but they didn't even want to hang on to him as a backup. And we're seeing it now. It's all about composure for Benny Keys. He's got no composure. He's not got the ability to steady. He's not got good technique. When he kicks, he brings the ball up from far too high, so he's prone for poor ball drops. He's very left-sided. He's got no right side whatsoever, so he's quite easy to cover once you do your homework on him. So for all his good points, he does have some severe limitations. Can you teach an old dog neutral? He's not that old, but I don't know whether you can change that.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping. I mean, I do see even this year, I think there's a little bit of improvement on last year. Not so much on... Well, maybe not as much improvement this year as what there was last year. But he did improve last year from the year before. Yeah. And I had hopes he'd take the next step again this year and clean up some of his disposal. Maybe they can make him have a little bit of composure and a bit of a think. He's not always because he runs around like his arse is on fire 2 seconds time. He's got to those burst steps are good. He gets away from everybody and then he just sort of hacks it. He just needs to. The brain seems to be going quicker than his legs. Yeah, he just needs to slow down a little bit. But maybe they can, because if they can get on top of that, he's going to be one hell of a player.
Yeah,
but they just need to get on top of that.
Honestly, I think some of it's technique. I really do. If you watch where he brings the ball down when he kicks it, so he's almost bringing it down from his chest. He needs to, like, he leans back on his kicking. He's got no balance. He's not balanced at all when he kicks. And if someone could get him to work on being lower over his kicking foot when he kicks, he'd eliminate some of those miskicks. It's not an easy thing to coach out of a kid that's been doing that for all of his life. And again, you sort of wonder where bloody junior coaches were at some stage, because it's not a difficult thing, but once it's ingrained and entrenched in the way that you play, it's very difficult to coach out.
Here's one for you, Fiend. If you drop Ben Keys into North midfield, where do you think you'd rank?
Okay. I mean, it'd be above Hugh Greenwood, obviously. I reckon.
Oh, Jesus! I think Doug McHenry's above Greenwood.
Yeah, Huey's dropped off severely. I don't mind Simpkin. I don't like Davies Uniacke.
But give him a lot more grunt around the ball, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you put him in the midfield with those two, I think it'd be an upgrade.
Yeah. So that's the type of player that I'm saying that's around our fringes. If we put if we could put like a couple of those type of players, like I love Ben. I reckon he puts a lot of effort in. But there's limitations, and if we could put a couple of players like that to them and say a second rounder to try and get Horn Francis, I think that's a better deal than giving away Rochelle.
100%. But you got to remember that the bloke's got to want to go. It's probably easier with a bloke like Keys, who we can say, look, you might struggle to make best 22. So if you want to play, consistent AFL footy, then maybe North's an option. I think the only way we do any deals is it's not through North. North need picks, and I think there's
North
not
needs experience. It's a hard spine too, mate.
Well, that's true, but
they need someone to set standards around the place, because from what I could see, there is none.
Yeah, but would you go to North? I mean, Benny Keys was the best and fairest 2 years ago. Would you go to North? I don't think so.
I don't think he won it, did he?
He's won one gold jacket, hasn't he?
No, he came second or third, but he didn't win one.
Whatever. Anyway,
we thought he was going to, but he's right up there. He's in the top five since he's coming here virtually.
Yeah, but I reckon he'd probably go to Essendon. I reckon he'd go to Essendon. I don't know whether he'd go to North.
Yeah, I was just putting it out there, that type of, at the moment he's right up there with our, in our midfield, but 1 or 2 years' time with the development of our young ones, he's not going to be.
Well, you wouldn't think so, no. And he's a bit like Matty Crouch, I think, because if he's not getting midfield minutes, where else can you play him? He's not a forward because he's just not reliable in front of goals. Look, he could be a small defender, quite possibly be a small defender actually, but that's the only other place he could play, I reckon, because he hasn't got any class about him or any polish, I should say, with his disposal. So interesting one, that one. Geordie Dawson, as I said, in my opinion, just a little bit wasted. He had 29 touches, 23 and 6, 7 marks, 4 tackles, 600 metres gained. The stat that I don't like is that he only had 4 score involvements, and that probably underlines my point that I just feel like it's just for a bloke that we paid that much currency for, and you can see that when he's played higher, when he was at the Swans, he can hit the scoreboard, he can take a good mark up forward. I just think it's easy mode to put. It's easy mode by the coaches to put Dawson across halfback. And Nick's talked a little bit about the players trusting each other during the week. That was shot down by Tex. I reckon the trust issue is actually, and I've said this before, I reckon the trust issue is between the coaching staff and the players, to be honest with you.
I think there's a little bit of not so much trust in the coaching group. I think there might be a little bit of wondering what the hell's going on with selection. With the younger players, I think, and yet again, our set in their ways older group seems to think they're entitled to a spot.
Yeah.
And the younger group sitting back and going, what the hell do we have to do?
Yeah. But I guess my what I mean there, Mick, is that I don't know whether Nix and co trust a bloke like Mitch Hinge to go back and play as an intercept halfback flanker, which he definitely can, in order to allow Jordan Dawson to play up the ground. That's where, and we've seen a few cases like that. They haven't trusted Sam Berry until recently to get into the midfield. He basically had to smash the door down. There's been a few other lads. Harry Schoenberg's been stuck forward a lot of the time. Jack Haitley took ages to be able to break into his preferred position. Just at times I don't feel like the coaches have enough trust in the kids to pull the trigger.
Yeah, which is not really good when you're in the middle of a rebuild.
That's right, and what you said before is perfectly on the mark. That the younger players will start to lose a bit of faith in the coaching panel that they actually are developing them, because Geordie Dawson across halfback, that's cheat mode against a side like North Melbourne. There's absolutely no. I can see. You're doing that for half a quarter or something to stem the tide. He'd be the go-to person, but no, we bought him to be an attacking, outside mid, and we're not using him that way. And I just feel like Nix is covering his ass by playing Jordan Dawson down back.
Yeah, yeah, probably, yeah, maybe. I mean, I like his disposal coming out of off of half back. I know it's probably need that disposal going into the forward line as well, but yeah, he's playing bloody well down there.
Oh, no doubt. But Brent Riley used to play well down there too, mate. And look, maybe it's because my impression is that Tom Duday is playing a bit injured at the moment, and they also seem to want to play Tom on taller players for some reason. I'm not happy with that. Tom Duday was a perfectly acceptable third man up intercept defender a couple of years ago, and I really think that he should be returned to that role. Mitch Hinge being in the team allows for that, and I think Dawson down back, as I won't labour the point anymore, but Dawson down back to me is a luxury that we should be.
I think a bit of that today, because he was named on the wing. I think a bit of that today is because I think that North actually tried to play an extra tall in attack, and they had to keep him down there. Maybe, I don't know, but I know they didn't line up like North moved the McKay out of defence and put him in forward, which didn't really do anything, but it did stretch our defence.
Yeah. Anyway, still think there are other options. Jordan Dawson is going to win our BNF by a country mile this year.
Agreed.
Cost us a fair swag in the trade period, and I'm pretty sure that when they traded him, they didn't sell him the dream of being loose across halfback. So, anyway.
Probably.
Jack Haitley, 21, 11 and 10, 4 marks, 365 metres gained. It wasn't a huge game by Jackson, 4 school involvements, 7 contested possessions. It was just a game by Jack, I thought.
Yeah, I don't think he has given him the opportunity. I didn't see him line up in a centre bounce. So he's playing on the wing.
Yeah.
Which is not his preferred position. He'd rather be, in the midfield. So I think, it was a game. I think if you put him in the game a few centre bounces, it'd be better.
Yeah, I agree.
He did his role. Wasn't anything special.
Yeah. Smithers, as we mentioned before, 14 and 7, 2 marks. Had 500 odd metres gained, but again, only 2 score involvements, only 4 intercepts, only win at 62% disposal efficiency. Is it time for Brodie to have a rest?
I think Brodie just seems to, and I know you've said it before, and I've bitten quite well when you've said about trading, but he kicks long. He kicks. I saw last week he tried to pull on a short kick and it was horrible. He can do a long kick, but there doesn't seem to be many other tricks. I mean, when he does a long kick, if there's a opposition player there, well, they just mark it because he doesn't seem to put it to our players' advantage. And maybe it's time to try someone else for a little while and give him a rest.
It's such a shame because Smithers, not only does he have a long kick, but it's a low raking kick as well that would be very effective if he could actually direct it properly. But as I've said many times on this podcast, his technique doesn't allow for accuracy. It's a sling technique. There's no way that he can consistently hit a target. With that sort of action.
Yeah, but he seems to be able to kick goals when it comes down to kicking goals, he'll get them.
Yeah, but kicking
8
goals,
times out of 10.
Kicking goals
So
is
if you
easy.
can get a bloody goal.
No, it's a completely different skill, Mick, because kicking a goal, you've only got to kick it through an area. When you're kicking to an individual, you've got to put it into a small drop zone, and he doesn't have the ability to do that. You can miss it, you've got 7 metres between the two goalposts. If you miss your target by 7 metres, trying to lace someone out, then you've turned it over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I've seen him miss one of our players by more than 7 metres before.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Look, it's a technique thing. It always has been with Brody. And he used to have it more. I remember him turning over some terrible. There was one in a final where he just needed to hit a target. I think it was Seedsman, and he kicked it behind him, and we turned it over, and it cost us. He's not good under pressure with his kicking, and to me it's just getting worse. And I think with Chase Jones showing form down back, Brodie Smith, I mean, he's not bad overhead, but he's not there really as a tall defender. He's more a running defender. I think we could probably give him a rest.
I was shocked when Jones was dropped. I just couldn't see the reasoning on that, because I was actually thinking he was getting a good bunch of games together, and I was very disappointed when Jones was dropped.
Yeah, me too. Jones and Hinge both were two omissions that I couldn't really understand. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see what they do with Brodie.
Well, if you wanted to, they could probably be best all round if they wanted to give Brodie a rest and didn't want to play Jones there. It'd be better off to play Miller back there.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. I wanted to talk with you about Miller in a minute. Let's just get through a few others. Darcy it was great to see Darcy running on top of the ground, and great to see Darcy putting a good stretch of games together. Career high 20 disposals in his 50th game, 14 and 6, 8 marks, including one nice little specky. 458 metres gained because he was getting up the ground a bit as well, which was good. 6 inside 50s, 10 score involvements, 10 contested possessions as well. I mean, I know he had that game against West Coast a few years ago, but I reckon it was his best game for the club.
By far, that game against West Coast, he kicked 5 goals. Today he kicked 4, but he got nowhere near 20 disposals. And he wasn't playing up the ground and doing what he was doing just today. It was a really good game. I was really happy with his game today.
Yeah, agreed. Now, don't forget, everyone, just because Mick's on here doesn't mean that no one else can have a say as well. So if you do want to have something to say, stick your hand up, and we'll be happy to have you on. And I must say, Mick, I'm very grateful for you coming on and being my standing co-host today. It's much appreciated.
All good.
Tommy today, a bit of a nothing game from Tom. I'd still say, and Nicky pointed out a few weeks ago, and I agree, he's got a hand issue. He can't, when he handballs, you can see he actually cradles the ball in his wrist rather than holds it in his hand. Why don't they just give him a rest? What's the point in playing him?
I have no idea. He is definitely playing injured. He's just not the same player that he's not performing like he usually does, and like he sets himself pretty high standards. And I'm a real Duday fan. I think he's going to be a really good 200 game player for us, but he's off the ball a little bit at the moment, and maybe not drop him next week against Melbourne because I don't want to get totally obliterated. But I don't know why they played him this weekend. He could have had this weekend off.
Yeah. If he's got an issue with his thumb or his wrist or his hand or whatever it is, again, another missed opportunity. But anyway, Jimmy Rowe, God, he's an enigma. 14 disposals, 19 and 5, 3 marks, 5 tackles, 273 metres gained. He had 2 inside 50s, 7 score involvements. So it's a pity he's not 10 centimetres taller. James Rowe.
Exactly.
Because
he's not
got
a small forward. Like I know he crumbs every now and again, and he does small forward stuff, but he's not a natural small forward. He should be up in the midfield somewhere, running around, because he knows where the ball's going to be. He's a smart footballer, and I actually like Jimmy Rowe. I reckon this year you can see he's a lot fitter than he was last year.
Yeah,
and I hope he gets fitter again and really makes a crack of it, because I think he gives it a pretty good go, and he's got the smarts. And as you said, just wish he was 10 centimetres taller.
So here you go. This is what I reckon, because I think there's a bit of value in having a bloke that that has football intelligence, right? Football IQ, and I reckon if there was a player that Jimmy Rowe needed to look at and say, I need to become that player, it's Baker from Richmond. If he could become Baker from Richmond, then he's got an AFL career, because that's the type of player he needs to be. At the moment, he's not, but he's certainly got the smarts to be that kind of intelligent, pesky player. He needs to work on his defensive side of his game a fair bit.
Yep.
But there's a lot there to work with. And if he could turn himself into something like Baker from Tigers, I'd be quite happy to keep him on the list. As it is at the moment, the problem is that he's taking a small forward spot, and I think the issue is that we can't have McHenry and James Rowe on the same team, because I think one of those spots needs to be a genuine small forward. We're kind of playing James Rowe as a small forward, but like you point out, he's not really that at the moment. Neb McHenry is definitely not that. So one of those two blokes has to go, in my opinion. And I'd probably, at the moment, value for kicks at the moment, James Rowe's in front of Neb McHenry. So I'd rather keep Rowe in the side. Neb McHenry for all his defensive work. If you could morph the two, you'd probably have Baker, actually. But we probably need a goal-kicking small. We don't have a goal-kicking small, and I reckon it hurts us.
And that's where I'd really like to have a look at what Newchurch would do.
Yeah.
Because what's it going to hurt? At least he's got one thing that most of our players haven't got. It seems to be, coaching group seems to be allergic to, and that's speed.
Yeah.
Just give him a go. Like, it's not like what's the worst going to happen? You need to give him. Don't do a standard Adelaide. Play him one game against Geelong and then drop him for 2 years. Like, if you're going to give him a go, give him 4 or 5 games.
We'd want to almost play him until the end of the season. The problem is, the only thing that I'd say about Newchurch is that I reckon he'd be a bit of a confidence player, and you could almost make or break him, I reckon, if you weren't careful. So you've got to be a bit careful with him. Anyway.
So I don't see many SAFL games, but I do check the stats every week, and there's not many weeks he doesn't get at least 2 goals.
Yeah, no,
and
it's
a couple
always
of tackles, and
yeah.
I just think it. McHenry's. We're trying to turn him into a small forward. He's not a small forward; he's a midfielder.
Yeah, he is.
That we're trying to change. Like, either play him in the midfield or don't play him.
Yeah. And when you think of, this is where you go back to his selection in the draft. What type of player did we think McHenry was going to become? There was never any evidence that he was a goal-kicking midfielder of any great degree. He was a good offsider to Sam Walsh. I think it was Sam Walsh. But I just wonder what the projection was on McHenry when we picked him. What we thought we were going to get, because he's got no depth in his kicking. So as a midfielder, he's very limited. Certainly defensively, and his work ethic and his engine and everything is excellent. But I don't know what they were thinking when they took him.
I still think for that 2-3 year period that our coach at that time had too much to say about who we selected. Because you just got to see the difference of the people we were selecting before that and the difference of the people we're selecting after that. And you've got to say that there was a 3-year group there that we missed a lot in our selections.
Yeah, it's possible. It'd be nice to get some inside word on that period of time, because you're right. We just made error after error. Anyway, Mitch Hinge, decent if not extraordinary. 400 metres gained from 13 touches. Did his job. Harry Schoenberg took a while to get the pace of the game, but I thought second half started to warm to the task a bit. Riley O'Brien.
Yep.
Took a nice grab late. Jake Saligo only had 12 disposals, but by God, it was a nice little 12 disposal game. He just looks good when he gets it. When he starts getting it a bit more, he's actually going to have an impact on the game more so than he does already. But every time he gets around the ball, he just looks composed and polished, in my opinion.
Just one thing going back on Harry, I noticed that after half time, he was getting more of the ball, but he was actually hitting targets now.
Yeah.
He seemed to have his disposal back, and that's what was missing earlier in the season. Like, he's still getting the ball, and he'd come running out, and then Christ only knows where the ball went after that. But this time he seemed to be actually hitting targets, and that's good to see. Hopefully he keeps his spot.
Well, the good thing about Harry, he had 9 tackles and 5 clearances, but I think it might have been a fitness issue with Harry, because he's 8 kicks, 5 handballs, but he just seemed to be more prepared to try and break from congestion and use the ball by foot a little bit more, whereas earlier on in the season I just felt like he was stuck in congestion and handballing. So I reckon it might have been a bit of a fitness issue for Harry, and now it's just a matter of him getting the pace of the game and getting his confidence back.
Yeah.
Tex was excellent. 12 touches, 10 and 2. He had 7 marks, 346 metres gained. What else did he have? 4 inside 50s, 10 score involvements. It's just so fortunate for our team that he is now back at the level that he was, 4 or 5 years ago, because he was cooked. He was done.
Makes you wonder how many injuries was he playing through, and therefore to be moving like he was 105 there for 2 years. And it makes you think, if we'd rested him for a block of 4 or 5 games, would we have seen this Tex in the previous seasons? Because it seems to be a batch of years that went through there where it was just a waste of his time being out there.
Yeah. I know he was carrying
keep on selecting people that are injured is
because I think there are certain players that demand selection at Adelaide. Rory Sloane, Tex Walker. I think Matt Crouch for a long time was one of those. I think back in the day, Scotty Thompson was one of those. I think we have an issue with managing senior players. I know for a fact that Tex was carrying a foot and carrying a hip injury at the very least. He was also having some problems with his knee that he did. But he refused to not play, and our coaching staff didn't have the agates to say, well, no, we're going to give you a rest. I think it's a real problem at Adelaide. We don't. The tail wags the dog when it comes to the senior players at times.
And that's where that group of our grand final group of players needed to be broken up. And, much as I like Sloane, I still put a lot of our defeat at that grand final at Sloane's feet, because you had someone who's played 3 games that tagged him out of the game completely. He might as well not even been on the field.
Yep.
And I thought that was one of the poorest efforts I've ever seen from someone in the leadership group. Some of his experience, everyone was ragging on Tex, but no, I think it was our midfield problem, and a lot of that was down to Sloane.
Well, look, I'll maintain that Sloane was always Robin to Dangerfield's Batman, and the moment Dangerfield left the building and Sloane had to step up, it was shown. And let's not forget that Sloane was a late second or early third round pick. He was never
44.
Yeah, he was never classed as elite, and he certainly made the best of his skills. When we had Dangerfield at the coalface, it allowed Sloane to get outside, and you remember some of the gut running runs that you used to get from Sloane down a flank, and big long goals from 50 sort of thing. But as soon as he lost the yard of pace and was playing more inside, it just became ineffective. And unfortunately, because he was part of that Batman and Robin scenario, I think it'd be a bit like if you had, say, Andrew McLeod and Tyson Edwards in the same team, and then McLeod retired or nicked off, and you then tried to build your midfield around Tyson Edwards. And this is no disrespect to Tyson, but I think it's the same sort of thing, that Tyson Edwards without Goodwin, McLeod and Rashudo wasn't as good a player. And I think the same can be said about Sloane, that without Dangerfield around, he just wasn't as good a player.
Yeah, it was some of the parts.
Yeah. Anyway, Millerer. Now, I struggled at times to work out where Millerer was playing. Where do you reckon he was playing?
Well, he played up forward, but I can't tell you what position. I don't think he knew.
I don't think he's a forward. I just don't think he's a forward.
I don't think he's a midfielder. I don't think he's a forward. I think he's halfback. And we should stop stuffing that around and play him where he belongs.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's I think the club was seduced by his form at SANFL level pre his draft, and particularly 1 or 2 games just prior to the draft where he really had a purple patch and looked like a bit of a wizard with the ball. But he's only a halfback flanker. Miller is only good running at the ball, in my opinion. If you get Miller running away from goals and having to take the ball and turn or give, you're actually robbing yourself of his main weapon, which is his ability to get through traffic and deliver by foot. And the best way to get him to make the most of his strengths is to have him running off half-back. Totally agree with you.
Well, disposal-wise, speed and probably intelligence of the game, if you swap Miller with Dawson, would you lose much? In the back line?
Well, you'd lose an intercept marker, and you'd probably lose a little bit.
We've got 2 of them. You've got 2 of them.
Yeah, we do.
With Hinge and
Duday.
Yeah, Duday.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. You'd probably lose a little bit of defensive pressure because Geordie is probably a little bit underrated defensively at ground level, but you certainly, I don't think the other thing you'd probably lose, Miller will tend to chip your 25 to 30 metre pass, whereas Geordie will hit up a
True.
45-metre pass.
Yeah.
So it would take
I
a little.
agree,
It would be a change.
You say about the Geordie being underrated in defence. I don't underrate his defence. He's a good defender and he can lay one hell of a tackle.
Yep. Sammy Berry was a little bit quiet today, but he still had bloody 13 tackles. He won't die wondering, Sam Berry defensively. I think he's still leading the league for average pressure acts, which is a fantastic effort for a third-year player. Geordie Butts did what he had to do. Very solid and reliable as always. Ned McHenry, only 9 touches, just not enough, and I think it's time Ned, or we tried someone else in that role. Nick Murray, was fun to see him in the ruck and around the ball and did a couple of things. Shane McAdam, Shane's almost gone back to front, and I'm talking before his injury. So he used to be like all offense and no defense, and all going for the specky and nothing much else. And now he's very much a bit of a defensive machine up forward. But we seem to have lost a little bit from him offensively. I don't know.
Well, I think he was actually about ready to fly when he did his ankle.
Yeah, well, he was.
Studied. I think he was about ready to go for a fly.
Yeah.
I'm loving what we're getting out of him at the moment. He's. I thought he was a one-trick pony, but he's proving me wrong on that because he's. You're right. He is giving us a lot of defense, but he's. I think this is the only game he hasn't kicked 2 or 3 goals for the last 3 or 4. Yeah. He's kicking goals, he's laying tackles, he's putting pressure on. He's one of the he's doing one that has improved this year in a way that I didn't think he could.
No, I must admit it left field from mine. He was kind of the forgotten man, and all of a sudden he was selected, and I thought, what's all this about? But really. Last chance saloon for Shane, really, it was this season. Maybe he's also benefited a bit from Darren Burgess being around the place and getting him a little bit fitter and able to give us second and third efforts because his defensive work certainly improved. Chase Jones, when he came on, certainly decent, got 7 touches. Paddy Parnell was pretty quiet, 7 touches, didn't do a hell of a lot. Will Hamill, again, flashy before he knocked himself out. And for Joshua Shelley to only have 6 touches for the game, I'm 2 minds. Do you keep him in? You just keep him in and let him keep playing?
Yeah, keep him in. You got to play him. The quicker we can get him to 50 games, the better it is going to be for the side. Keep him in, and as you said, maybe when the games, when we can, and opportunities we can, give him a couple of set down of bounces just to try and put a smile back on his face. But I think he's lost a bit of confidence in himself. That's just something he has to fight through.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think you keep him in. I don't think there's much to be gained from him playing the 2s. The only time I think I'd rest him is if he was carrying a niggle. Now, Mick.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, Mick, because you're the stand-in and doing a mighty fine job, I might add, and I'm sure everyone in the studio audience and the broader Discord community and YouTube will agree. So thanks again. I much appreciate your efforts today. You get to be Macca when it comes to... Please don't be Nicky. Be Macca when it comes to giving some votes, mate.
If it was Nicky, I'd pick up Parnell and...
Yeah, so let's be Macca. And give us your 5 to 1.
Well, I think Laird would have to be 5, in my opinion. Yep. Followed very closely by Dawson.
Yep.
Tex.
Yeah.
Fogarty's got to be in there. He had a really good game from Fog. I'm really happy. with his game. And while it wasn't an outstanding game from him, I think I'll throw one vote towards Ligo. Just the way he's improving and giving it a crack game after game after game. I'm really enjoying seeing the kid come along.
Yep, agreed. For mine, led, I think, just over Walker, who I thought was dominant today. Fogarty, a very good 3. Geordie, a 2. Only because I think that it's easy for Geordie back there. I think he'd be loving life back there. Just scraping up the mess. Who do I want to give 1 to? Jeez, who do I want to give 1 to? We only had 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's what I was scratching around. That's why I went with Sligo, because I liked his game. I didn't know who to give 1 to.
You know, interesting stat. We only had 7 players that had over 10 kicks for the game. That's surprising. Right. Fogarty and Walker, 2 up forward, had 14 and 10. And then apart from that, we only had Smith with 14, Haitley with 11, Dawson with 23, Keys with 17, and Laird with 13. Is that some kind of... That amazes me, actually. Who am I going to give 1 to?
Rowe played pretty well too, I suppose. I mean, you can't deny...
I was thinking about
Rowe. 2 goals.
I think I'll give mine to Rowe, simply because you gave yours to Saligo, and they're probably the 2 that I was querying, so we even up there. Now, before this week, Dawson miles in front on the podcasters thing, and also even more miles in front on the listeners list. Walker making a bit of a run with some good form, but at the moment it looks like Geordie's prize to lose. Next week we got Melbourne, mate. Any show whatsoever?
We'll get out on the ground and we'll play a game. I don't think we're going to be going to repeating last year's result. That's for sure.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think they're going to smash us.
They were awesome against Brisbane. Either. After quarter time, they were powerful. They were powerful against Brisbane. They really, really, really made a statement.
I get to watch a lot of different games of football because, as I said, I've got 2 brother-in-laws that go for North, and one's a Cat, and a nephew that goes for St Kilda, and I've got a son-in-law that goes for Brisbane. So I get to watch a lot of games, and I rated Brisbane, but Jesus, they gave them a flogging.
They certainly did, and if Brisbane are best of the rest, then they got some problems. Now, Nicky isn't here. But I have got a brief cockwomble, and I'll tell you what, the reason why I'm saying this is because it just really frustrates me whenever I hear about this. So let me just set this up a little bit. So, apart from the umpiring, which I thought again was ridiculous across many games over the weekend,
it's a standard this year.
It's horrific. It really is. Let me just see if I can put this on real quick. Now, Anthony Hudson said this during the cast, and I think he said it about a Brodie Smith kick, and a lot of commentators say it, and it really, really, really pisses me off. I don't know. It's one of those things that, you know how some things just really piss you off.
Yeah,
it was one of those things.
I've got one after you.
Well, you go first because you go first.
Years. It's all the people that are saying, and there's a few in the chat saying it as well, about sacking Nicks. Now, Crows have gone down this line before, changing coaches every 2 or 3 years. And look where it got us. Nowhere. All the sides of late that have won premierships have had their side for 5, 6, 7, 8 years to build the player group that they want, to get their game plan through. We can't. Yeah, we've got to give Nix at least 4 years. I think probably longer to try and get the group. The whole competition is not so simple as just throw out a coach and get a new coach and we're going to go forward. It's not like that anymore. It just really grinds my gears that everyone's saying sack. I hear people say sack Nix, sack Nix. It wouldn't matter who you got coaching at the moment. With the amount of experience that we've got, we're not going to be in the 8. We're not going to be winning the premiership next season. Give the bloke time to develop the side. That's my gripe.
I don't disagree with that. Mick, the only thing that I would say is that I'm a little bit concerned about his tactical nous.
I hear that too, but you look at our side and took a real good think about it. Look at the amount of players we've got out there under 50 games.
Agreed.
So if it's the end of next season and we haven't got we can't see more tactics and we can't see a more refined game plan coming along, then I'll start criticising. But this season, I think it's a little bit, we can see a bit more of a game plan than last season. And give it another season. No one seems to come in and have a whole new game plan, especially with a group as young as ours and inexperienced as ours, and have it all clicking within 1 or 2 years. You just don't see it. So I reckon that by end of next season, if we haven't got a better, more defined idea of tactics and better, more defined idea of game plan, well then maybe start complaining. But not this year.
Yeah, I'm happy to keep him going through at this stage. I do have a query about his ability to coach a premiership winning team, but let's not forget we chose a rookie coach. So I think you've got to also remember that the guy's got to develop a little bit himself. The question, I guess, is does he have enough experience around him? Scotty Burns has been in the caper for quite a while. So there's as a senior assistant, there's a bit of experience. You wonder whether it needed someone.
James Healy's pretty experienced as well.
Yeah. Whether they need to have someone with him like we used to have with Bales, I'm not quite sure. But I'm prepared to give him a little bit more time. Absolutely.
I'd like to get our hands on the Giants coach and turn him into either the midfield coach or someone between Nix and the line coaches. Just to give a bit more. I just don't throw the players around like he was, but just maybe come up with a few left field ideas every now and again instead of just constantly going down the line. Someone that can be sitting there and come out with a few out of the box ideas, because he was definitely out of the box, that one.
Mate, you're going really well tonight until I
said about him.
I don't want Leon Cameron anywhere near Adelaide. We've got enough problems without having Leon bloody Cameron in our club. That's just my opinion.
But I'm just thinking, didn't rate him as a senior coach. But
it was highly rated as a...
Yeah. He just decided that, you're a... he would be the wrong fit for Adelaide because, you go look at the midfielder and go, you're going to be a forward or something just like Adelaide does. So, maybe we'll scratch that idea.
Yeah. Anyway. All right, now mine is a little bit less football related than that. How many times have you seen a player kick the ball from the inside of their foot, like miskick it from the inside of their foot, Mick. And the commentator says he's kicked it off his instep.
Mm-hmm.
Now look, those who are watching, your instep is actually where you're supposed to kick the ball from, because your instep is the top of the foot, between the toes and the bottom of your leg. Your instep is the flat part on top of your foot. The inside of your foot, between your ankle and your big toe, is not called the bloody instep. And Anthony Hudson and Brian Taylor and every other bloody idiot AFL commentator that says, oh, he kicked it off his instep. No, he bloody didn't, because he's supposed to kick it off his instep, for God's sake. And it drives me crazy. And he said it again today, and I just thought I'd point it out.
My two most hated callers of the game has got to be Brian Taylor and bloody Derm. You know, you listen to those two, you feel like they're giving yourself a lobotomy.
See, I don't mind Derm, except I feel like he thinks he always needs to talk. I think Derm's actually quite smart from a football point of view. But
if he's commentating a Victorian side, yes. But as soon as he gets anywhere near a Crow side, he's got no idea about our players. Tries to make out he does, and it's embarrassing.
Yeah. He doesn't know when to shut up. Like he would analyse two blades of grass if he felt he had to. But at least he tries to explain what's going on. I'd much rather a bloke who tries than a bloke that just fluffs around like Brian Taylor and it's all about his ego. You know,
I can't stand right, PT. Cannot stand him. Just one more thing before I'll probably leave you go in peace.
Thank you, mate.
I do see people saying about Paddy Parnell in the chat too, and need to put on some weight, which he probably does, but I'd rather him and Brown at the moment. I don't think we're losing that much. And, I think he's going to be a player of the future. I really like little Paddy.
I just don't think you give the kid a couple of games and get rid of him. Luke Brown's done nothing to warrant being straight back in. I'd like to see a rich vein of form from Luke Brown before he got back into the A's, because as an experienced player should be required to deliver that. And Luke Brown's done nothing this year in the ones to warrant automatic reselection. So I'm quite happy with Parnell, and I'm quite happy with Jones.
I like Paddy's delivery. Like, I think he's still at the moment, he's still a bit rushed with some of his kicks. But I think he thinks he's under more pressure than what he is at sometimes. Yeah. But once he gets, another 3 or 4, we've got to give him I think we give him the rest of this year. And I think you'll see an improvement as he goes of, his kicking skills, because that's what he's known for.
Yeah.
And like we might have our own. I'm trying to think of the bloke now from Western Bulldogs.
Caleb Daniel.
Caleb Daniel, yeah. And he's not that big, but he does a bloody good job back there.
Yep. It's a big call. He's got a long way to go to be Caleb Daniel. But certainly between him and Jones, I think we have a combination that could work very well for us in terms of that mid to small defender. People saying if Hamill's out, does Brown come back? No, I think Jones just stays in the side. I don't think there's any reason why you would leave Jones out again and put Brown in. I think Jones came in for Hamill. I think he did a very good job, and he stays in as far as I'm concerned. Yeah,
I agree 100% on that one.
Yep. All right, mate. Well, look, I very, very much appreciate you coming on. It would have been a very boring podcast without someone to discuss the footy with, so much appreciated. I'm sure everyone who's listening on Discord and on YouTube feels the same way. So you're a legend, mate. Much appreciated.
All good. Thank you.
And to everyone, don't forget, if you want to support CrowCast, you can go to patreon.com/AFLCrowCast. We appreciate everyone who supports us on that platform. We appreciate everyone who's joined us tonight, both in the live studio, on Discord chat, and also on YouTube chat. Thanks very much. Next week's Melbourne. Don't forget, this week we have a home ground ticket giveaway. So if you want tickets to the game against the D's on the weekend, please pop your name in the tickets channel on our Discord server. If you're listening on demand, just go into, and you're not a member, just go into our Discord channel using the link that's in the description on the YouTube, under the YouTube video, and join up, put your name in the tickets channel, and we will draw that on when's the game? When's the game? I should know this, but clearly I don't. Game is on Saturday, so we'll draw it on, to give people enough time, we'll actually draw it on Thursday night this week. To give people enough time to get themselves organised. So get your name in the tickets channel before, let's say 5 p.m. on Thursday, and I will draw it sometime Thursday evening, and publish the results on Discord and also on Twitter and Facebook for those who are on those platforms. In the meantime, thanks Mick, you're a legend. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next week. Take care, and we'll see you later.